There's a ruthless truth Niccolo Machiavelli understood centuries ago that the modern masses are still completely blind to. He wrote in The Prince that true power doesn't announce itself. It operates in the shadows. After analyzing the psychology of individuals who have accumulated serious capital over the last 3 decades, I can tell you this applies exactly to how wealth is weaponized at the highest levels. Here is the illusion you've been sold. You think the person looking wealthy is the most powerful person in the room. They almost never are. And this isn't an accident. It is a carefully engineered systemic trap. I've watched high-income earners live in a state of perpetual anxiety, constantly performing, constantly bleeding capital to prove their worth to people they don't even like. They think they are winning, but in reality, they are voluntary hostages to a system designed to extract their wealth. Meanwhile, the quiet millionaires, the ones holding genuine, liquid capital, operate from an entirely different psychological framework. They aren't playing the game. They are watching it from the VIP box. And I'm going to break down exactly how they manipulate this reality, because once you see the strings, you never look at money, status, or power the same way again. I'm not talking about the loud influencers renting supercars for views. I'm not talking about lottery winners who got lucky and let their ego destroy their bank accounts. I'm talking about the apex predators of the financial ecosystem, the ones who quietly move their families into generational security while the rest of the economy is bleeding. But these are the people who truly embody Machiavelli's principle. A wise prince keeps his counsel private and lets his enemies destroy themselves through their own vanity. Here is the critical psychological shift that happens when someone crosses into true, untouchable wealth. Money stops being an identity. It becomes ammunition. Psychologists refer to this as identity decoupling, but in the context of power dynamics, it means the wealthy refuse to use money to beg the world for validation. Think about it. The modern economy is built on a status tax. It forces the middle class to buy depreciating assets, luxury cars, designer labels, oversized houses, just to signal their place in the hierarchy. The true 1% recognize this status game for what it is. A prison built to keep you in debt, working, and compliant. They don't need the car to validate them. They don't need the lifestyle to feel dominant. Spending loses its psychological urgency because they possess something far more dangerous: leverage. There's a brutal rule of power that the masses misunderstand. If you have to show it, you are bleeding power to maintain it. I live in an area surrounded by what I call status performers. From the outside, they look successful, but look at their balance sheets and you'll see fragility. They are one market crash away from ruin. But the quiet wealthy. From the outside, they look restrained. From the inside, it is pure, weaponized indifference. They aren't restraining themselves from buying the Lamborghini. They genuinely view the Lamborghini as a liability that compromises their freedom. Research from behavioral finance consistently exposes this paradox. The loudest spenders usually are the most fragile financial foundations. They are performing because they are terrified the world will find out they haven't actually made it. The truly wealthy already know they hold the cards. So here is the single question that separates the players from the pawns. If this purchase gave you 0 social credit, if nobody on earth knew you owned it, would you still sacrifice your future freedom to buy it? That single question is how you stop being a consumer and start becoming a strategist. Now, this leads directly to the second psychological weapon that separates the apex wealth builders from everyone else. Machiavelli would have appreciated this deeply. The quiet wealthy optimize for strategic immunity, not image. Now, the technical term is optionality bias. But in the ruthless game of wealth, what it really means is this: every single spending decision is run through a singular, unforgiving filter. Does this purchase increase my leverage, or does it hand my power over to someone else? That's it. They aren't asking, can I afford it, or what will the neighbors think? They are asking, does this lock me into a system I can't escape? Does this add obligations that force me to bow to a boss, a creditor, or a market crash? This is why you see the quiet millionaires hoarding liquidity and delaying the flashy upgrades that the aspirational middle class jump on immediately. They avoid lifestyle creep because they recognize it as a disease of the ego. When you let image drive your spending decisions, you are literally paying money to reduce your own freedom. You are buying a cage and calling it success. But optionality? Optionality is power. It means when the market bleeds, you don't panic. You pivot. You dictate the terms of your life without explaining yourself to anyone. Consider the billionaire class. We often mock their simple wardrobes or unflashy daily habits, thinking they are just eccentric. But stripped down, a decision like wearing the same uniform every day isn't about being thrifty. It is about preserving cognitive dominance. They eliminate meaningless choices to reserve their mental bandwidth for decisions that move markets. Meanwhile, the mid-level executive making $200,000 a year feels compelled to finance a luxury car and wear designer suits to signal status. Now think about the tragedy of that. They are taking the money they traded their life force to earn and handing it right back to the system just to look like they are winning a game they are actually losing. According to Federal Reserve data, households with $1 million net worth carry significantly lower consumer debt than the upper middle class. Why? Because the truly wealthy understand that debt is the ultimate enemy of optionality. Debt is a master. When you finance status, you are signing away your future choices for a momentary hit of dopamine today. Before any major upgrade, the quiet wealthy ask themselves a brutal question. If my income was slashed by 50% tomorrow, would this purchase become a noose around my neck? If the answer is yes, it's not a victory. It's a trap disguised as an achievement. Oh, here's where I want to test your understanding of the game. Before we dissect the next framework, I want you to confront your own psychology. When you think about letting go of your image to build actual optionality, what is the first emotion you feel? Is it liberation, or is it panic? Drop your honest answer in the comments. And if you're ready to stop performing for a broken system and start building actual financial autonomy, hit subscribe. The conversation is about to get much darker and much more profitable. You won't want to miss how the 1% build their fortresses. What separates a person who looks comfortable from a person who actually is comfortable is almost always this: where they store their sense of security. This is the third psychology, and it's one that genuinely surprises people when they first hear it. From the outside, cars and houses look solid, look permanent, look like real wealth. From the inside, though, they feel fragile. They feel like maintenance, commitments, ongoing costs that never ask permission. Property taxes come every year, whether you've earned money that year or not. Insurance compounds. Maintenance appears constantly. The moment you own stuff, the stuff owns part of your decisions. Liquidity feels completely different. Liquidity feels quiet. It's calm. It's reversible. Stuff can break. Options don't. And I just had to pay property taxes, and it reminded me, that's money I didn't plan spending that year. Money that comes whether I want it or not. But cash in the bank? Cash doesn't demand anything. It waits for you to decide how to use it. This is why the quiet wealthy hold cash, diversify it, invest it in liquid instruments, and deliberately stay boring on purpose. From the outside, people might look at them and think, they're cheap, they're not enjoying their money. From the inside, they're sleeping well, they're unstressed, they have options. Research on financial well-being is clear on this. Perceived security correlates more strongly with liquid reserves than net worth tied up in illiquid assets. Think about someone like Ray Dalio, one of the world's greatest investors. Well, he's talked openly about the importance of maintaining substantial cash reserves even as someone with multi-billion-dollar net worth. It's not about fear. It's about optionality and the peace of mind that comes from knowing you can weather anything without having to liquidate at a bad time. This is a principle Machiavelli understood implicitly. He wrote about the importance of fortifications and reserves in The Prince. The prince who has prepared defenses and kept reserves maintains power even when circumstances change. Let's face the brutal reality of macroeconomics. Collapses don't knock before they enter. When the system fractures, those fixed assets that everyone paraded as status symbols instantly morph into concrete anchors, dragging them to the bottom. It's the same with wealth. The person with liquid reserves maintains psychological power over their own life. They're not forced to sell in down markets. They're not desperate. And desperate people make terrible financial decisions. The quiet wealthy know this, so they deliberately build what most call a peace of mind fund, but what is actually a war chest. Now, most people talk about an emergency fund being 3 to 6 months of expenses. That's a starting point, sure. But if you actually want the psychological comfort that allows you to make clear decisions, you need to push toward 9 to 18 months. This isn't just to help you sleep well with comforting illusions. It is your fortress. When the macroeconomic bleeding starts, high liquidity isn't just safety, it's ammunition. It is the absolute power to stand outside the wreckage of those driven by greed and ego and acquire their distressed assets for pennies on the dollar. That buffer allows you to think clearly, to say no to situations that don't serve you. It's not about being paranoid, it's about being powerful. This leads directly to the fourth psychology that the quiet wealthy embody, and this one is brutal in its simplicity. They exit the comparison game entirely. Not because they won, because they realized the prize was stupid. Psychologists call this social comparison exit. Most people are playing a game where they can never win because the goalpost keeps moving. Someone always has something nicer. Someone always achieved something bigger. There's always someone to compare yourself to unfavorably. The quiet wealthy don't win this game. They quit it, and they walk away completely. Psychologists call this social comparison exit. Most people are playing a game where they can never win because the goalpost keeps moving. Someone always has something nicer. Someone always achieved something bigger. There's always someone to compare yourself to unfavorably. The quiet wealthy don't win this game. They quit it. They walk away completely. They recognize that the comparison game is not just a human flaw. It is a system intentionally designed to keep the middle class broke and compliant. I don't sit around looking at the house next door or the car next door or comparing myself to neighbors or friends or social media figures. I genuinely don't care what they have. What I care about is whether I'm living true to my own dreams, my own values, my own vision for my family and my life. That's it. The people at the highest levels understand something fundamental. Keeping up with people you don't know, buying things you don't need, to impress people who aren't paying your bills? The math doesn't work. It's not even a subtle calculation. It's obviously broken. Look at someone like Warren Buffett again. He could own any house in the world. He chooses to live in a house worth maybe $5 million, which to him is basically nothing. He doesn't upgrade because he's not in competition with anyone. He's not trying to look richer than his neighbors. He's not trying to prove anything to anyone. And that's the psychological freedom most people never experience. They're trapped in the comparison cycle forever. The quiet wealthy know that comparison is the death of peace. Behavioral finance research is consistent on this point. Social comparison is one of the strongest predictors of overspending. When you look at someone else's lifestyle and feel inadequate, you spend. When you see someone else's purchase and feel like you're falling behind, you buy. It's not conscious most of the time. It's neurological. But the quiet wealthy have broken this pattern. They've genuinely stopped playing. And not because they lost, but because they understood the game itself was designed to make them lose. Here's what I tell people to do. Unfollow one account this week that makes you feel behind. If you're looking at someone's social media and it's not inspiring you, if it's stressing you because you feel like you're falling behind, that's not motivation, that's pressure. Block it out, unfollow it. Don't get caught in the game. I've been there. I lived by comparison for a while, and it put me in debt. It made me miserable because I had the stuff, but nothing felt good. Sometimes you have to learn the lesson the hard way. But the point is this: even though they have it, even though the media says to get it, even though social media is pushing it on you constantly, the real question is, do you actually want it? Does it actually matter to you? Or are you wanting it because someone else has it? Here's your engagement moment for this section. Do you agree or disagree with the idea that most people are trapped in a comparison cycle they don't even recognize? Drop your honest take in the comments. Now, the fifth psychology that separates the quiet wealthy from everyone else is something I call the permanence principle. Psychologists would call it irreversibility awareness. But what it really means is this: the quiet wealthy don't see purchases as momentary pleasures. They see them as permanent obligations. Every purchase is evaluated not just for what it costs today, but for what it will demand from you forever. They're asking themselves, am I okay owning this forever? What happens if circumstances change and I still have to pay for this? This is why their spending is typically slow, intentional, and often looks boring to outsiders. They're not asking, is this nice? Do I deserve it? Will this make me happy? They're asking, is this worth the permanent commitment? Or could this become an anchor? There's a massive difference in the quality of decision you make depending on which question you're asking. I use what I call the 72-hour rule. I put something in my cart and I wait. After 3 days, if the emotional impulse has worn off and I can't find a rational reason for it beyond status, comparison, or how it will look, I delete it. I don't buy it. Think about someone like Jeff Bezos. He famously delayed purchases of luxury items for years, even after becoming one of the richest people on Earth. When he eventually bought a yacht, it wasn't an impulsive decision. It was carefully considered and aligned with his actual lifestyle and values. What's the difference between Bezos and someone making $200,000 who immediately finances a boat they can't afford is this: Bezos sees the boat as a permanent decision. The other person sees it as a purchase. One is strategic, one is reactive. Machiavelli understood the cost of commitments. He wrote extensively about how a leader must be careful not to be constrained by obligations that limit their freedom and future options. It's the same with purchases. Every luxury good you buy is a commitment. It commits your money to its purchase. It commits your time to its maintenance. It commits your future options to its ongoing costs. You're literally trading future freedom for present pleasure. And the quiet wealthy know that's usually a bad trade. Before upgrading to anything significant, here's the question: would I still want this if nothing else changed in my life? If you couldn't use it to impress anyone, if nobody would ever see it, if it gave you zero social credit and just sat in your life silently, would you want it? If the answer is no, then wait. Don't spend it. Let it go. The impulse will pass. But if the answer is yes, then you can revisit it after the 72 hours have passed and make a clearer decision. Now we come to the sixth and final psychology, and this is the one that separates the truly wealthy from everyone else, because this is about power at the deepest level. The quiet wealthy are comfortable being misunderstood. Psychologically, this is what's called low need for external validation. But let me be clear about what that really means. That it means they don't spend their psychological energy correcting narratives. They don't say, well, actually, I could afford that. They don't justify their choices or validate their decisions. They don't explain. They don't defend. This is genuinely one of the hardest things to master, especially with your own family. There are people in my family who look at how we live, how we travel, and they wonder things. Maybe they think I'm in debt. Maybe they think something's wrong. Honestly, it's not their business. I don't need their validation. I need to know that I'm living true to my values, true to my ideals, making the choices that serve my life and my family. That's the entire equation. Period. And here's the deeper question I ask myself. If they knew my full financial situation, would they treat me differently? Not, and if the answer is yes, then I definitely don't want that. I don't want conditional regard. I don't want people valuing me based on my net worth or my spending patterns. I want to be who I am. Take it or leave it. Most quiet millionaires operate exactly this way. They blend in from the outside. You'd never know. You walk down the street in areas like Laguna Beach or similar wealthy enclaves, and you see billionaires in board shorts and t-shirts. Ordinary-looking people, the most down-to-earth humans you'd meet. From the inside, though, they're untouchable. They're not moved by the validation game because they're internally validated. This is what Machiavelli meant when he discussed the importance of not caring what the masses thought of you, not because you're arrogant, but because you're operating from a different level of understanding. The prince who needs constant affirmation from the crowd is enslaved to the crowd. The prince who knows his own mind is free. It's the same with wealth. The person who needs external validation for their spending is enslaved to external opinion. The person who doesn't need it is free. But here's what most people don't understand. That comfort, that internal validation, that freedom from caring what others think, it's expensive to build. You have to be willing to be misunderstood. You have to be willing to let people wonder. You have to be willing to have them make assumptions about your financial situation, your choices, your character, and not correct them. But once you have it, it's priceless. It's genuinely the most valuable possession you can own. Not because it means you're making decisions based on your values, not your audience. You have no obligation to explain your financial choices to anyone, not your family, not your friends, not your neighbors. That silence is your muscle. That silence is your power. I'm completely transparent with my wife and my closest family about our financial situation, the people who are involved in our decisions and our legacy. But beyond that, our financial situation is our financial situation. I don't explain why I took a first-class flight or decided to fly private or drive a certain kind of car. I don't justify my choices. I don't need their approval. I just need to know I'm being true to myself. Here's your moment to lock this in. What's one area where you're still seeking external validation for your financial choices? Drop it in the comments, a single word or phrase that names it. This is the practice that builds the muscle of indifference, and indifference is power. Here's the thing that most people miss completely, and it's the thing that ties everything together. The quiet wealthy don't live this way in order to become wealthy. They live this way because wealth fundamentally changed what matters to them. Money stopped being the loudest voice in the room. Status stopped being attractive. Freedom became the priority. That's the psychological shift. That's what separates people who have money from people whose money has mastery over them. This isn't theory. This is pattern recognition from decades of watching people cross into genuine wealth and watching what they do on the other side. Once someone truly understands that money is just a tool for optionality, everything changes. They stop trying to prove they made it and start actually enjoying the freedom that comes from having made it. They stop performing and start living. And that shift is invisible to most people, which is exactly why they still look ordinary. One of the reasons that quiet millionaires stay grounded and clear-headed is beautifully simple. They know exactly what their lifestyle costs. Not guesses, not vibes, not rough estimates. They know the numbers. They understand the math of their own lives. And when you know what freedom actually costs, not just hypothetically but down to the dollar, you stop overspending for things that don't buy it. You start deliberately moving toward what actually matters. You become intentional instead of reactive. Think about someone like Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's longtime partner. Even as a multi-billionaire, he was known for knowing his portfolio details, his spending patterns, and his cash flows with precision. It wasn't obsessive. It was clarity. That clarity is what allowed him to make better decisions, to spot opportunities others missed, and to maintain the psychological calm that comes from truly understanding your own situation. Here's what real wealth actually is. It doesn't announce itself. It opts out. It doesn't need your attention or your explanation. Real wealth is boring. It's quiet. It's the opposite of flashy. And once you understand that, you stop trying to look rich and you start building something far more powerful. You start building actual freedom, actual choice, actual options in your life. And that's something everyone deserves. The framework is simple. Know your numbers, optimize for optionality instead of image, keep liquidity as your security blanket, or exit the comparison game completely, treat every purchase as permanent, and be comfortable being misunderstood. These 6 psychologies aren't rules, they're patterns. Patterns that the quiet wealthy embody naturally because money stopped being emotional for them and started being intentional. If you want to accelerate this shift in your own thinking, there are tools that help. There are lifestyle cost calculators on the internet that give you clarity on exactly what your life actually costs versus what you think it costs. Most people are shocked. They think they need less than they do because they've never actually done the math, or they think they need more because they're wildly underestimating their spending. These calculators aren't about restriction. It's about design. It's about intentionality. And it's about taking control of the conversation instead of letting emotion and comparison control you. Here's what I genuinely believe at the core of my being. Financial freedom is a birthright. It's not for the select few. It's not for people born into money. It's available to anyone who understands the psychology, the strategy, and the behaviors that actually build and maintain it. I want to light the path for 1 million families to get there. And I want one of them to be you. That's why this content exists. That's why we have this conversation. So here's what I'm asking. Which one of these 6 psychologies hit you the hardest? Which one surprised you the most or challenged how you've been thinking about your own financial life? Drop it in the comments. Let me know. Because your reflection on this helps reinforce the ideas, and it helps other people in the community see themselves in the conversation too. This is how we build a community of people serious about actual freedom instead of the performance of freedom. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and join a growing community of people who are done with the comparison game and ready to build real wealth with real peace of mind. This is where the conversation goes deeper. This is where we break down the actual strategies, the actual numbers, the actual frameworks that move people from high earner to actual wealth builder. You don't want to miss this. Because here's the thing, earning more doesn't make you free. But understanding the psychology of people who actually kept what they earned, that's the beginning of freedom. That's the beginning of choice. And once you have that, everything else becomes possible. The quiet millionaires know this. The world just doesn't see them yet. But you will. You're seeing them right now. I believe in you. I believe in your capacity to understand this differently and to act differently. I believe in your ability to step out of the comparison cycle and into intentional design of your life. Until we talk again, remember, real wealth opts out, and so can you. See you in the next one.